Why are some innovations more successful than others? What drives the decision criteria used by customers on what innovations to adopt and which to ignore? I'll be right back.
This is the Killer Innovations Podcast with Phil McKinney. Keep in mind that the information and opinions expressed in this podcast are Phil's, and Phil's alone, and they don't necessarily reflect those of his past, current, or future employers. Now, here's Phil McKinney.
We've all heard the old adage, build a better mousetrap and the world will beat a path to your door. That adage is correct if you define better to mean greater utility in the minds of the customers. Utility is what customers use to decide if they should adopt a new innovation. The biggest mistake we have as innovators is that we fall in love with our idea so much that we forget to consider the utility, or what some would call the cost benefit. And let's face it, a new innovation never replaces 100% of the needs of the customer. There are always some form of existing solutions that are used by customers. And even in some cases, that existing solution is that the customer will do nothing. There isn't enough of a compelling reason to even think about taking on or using your idea or your innovation. Because customers know what the existing solutions cost and how they perform. Whether that's just doing nothing, they don't see the additional gain they're going to get, but they're most familiar with what they are already doing. And customers will use a ruthless set of criteria to review, prioritize, select which innovations they're going to use. The innovations that offer more utility that it can be understood by the customer, will win. So what is utility? Total utility is defined as the sum of all the benefits a customer gains from consuming a particular good or services minus the cost involved. If that number is positive, however criteria you want to use, then it's a positive utility. Or if the costs are more than the benefit they get, it's a negative utility, you're not going to get adopted. So again, total utility is the sum of all benefits a customer gains from consuming a particular good or service minus the cost involved. So what are some of the things that the total utility looks at? When you're calculating utility of an innovation, what are the things you should be looking at? Well, there's true cost, such as the transfer cost. How much does it actually cost for me to acquire this technology or this idea or this innovation into my life, whether it be a consumer or a business? Time. How much time is it going to take? Is it going to give me time back, or do I have to consume more time? Is there real money involved? Do I have to make some kind of other investment to make this work? And then what I call aggravation costs. These are switching costs. These are all the costs to get people committed to adopting this new innovation. It could be the aggravation cost of just having to train your spouse on how to use that all-in-one remote control. You brought that innovation into the house. There's an aggravation cost of getting that adoption and making it useful for everybody. Now, when you look at utility costs, there are also non-economic costs. That includes environmental impact, moral implications. Should you really be doing this, or are you getting this somehow that's not going to be viewed as being morally correct? Safety, public benefit, image, local and national prestige. If you're the first to adopt this, or you're thought as a thought leader, does it give you some kind of prestige? Convenience and ease of use. Is this something that you can get your arms around and you can understand from a customer perspective that they would adopt? So again, utility costs look at transfer costs, time, money, aggregation costs, but also look at the non-economic cost, environmental impact, moral implications, safety, public benefit, image, local national prestige, convenience, ease of use. These are not the exhaustive list when you look at utility, but these are the things you should look at. And be honest, we tend to fall in love with our ideas so much that we forget about the fact that there are costs associated with adopting any new innovation. And you need to understand what that cost is. Otherwise, you're never going to get that customer to adopt what it is you're presenting. Innovation success is never just about what is possible. It's always about the choices customers and markets make from among what we can do. There's lots of choices. We have limited resources, limited dollars, limited time, limited energy, limited focus. That's all those play into the choices we make as to what we're going to choose to do and what we're going to choose to invest our time in or our money. And that includes selecting which innovations we're going to adopt. It's irrelevant how hard an innovation is pushed. It's not about marketing. It's not about advertising. If there isn't a corresponding pull from customers, that innovation will be dead on arrival. Innovation adoption is about having both a push, meaning having real utility in the minds of the customers, such that the customers actually pull that innovation into the marketplace. If there isn't a combination of that push and pull, the innovation will be dead on arrival. Mark my words. The other area we tend to fall trap to is that innovation adoption takes longer than you think. Much longer than you think. The Battelle Institute has found that it takes 20 years on average for an innovation to move towards commercial status, commercial success. Now, this is not just this issue of getting to 50 million users, which you'll recall I covered in a previous podcast, but this is going from literally from the very kernel of the idea all the way up to the point of where it gets adopted. For example, fax machine, 17 years, 1968 to 1985. The microwave, 20 years. Gasoline engine, 27 years. The radio, 14 years. Radios were first proved out in 1906 and really got into wide adoption in 1920. Television set, 17 years. The mouse, 18 years. 1963 was the first demonstration of a mouse. 1981 was when it was available on the first Xerox machine from the Xerox PCs. Barcode, 20 years. Copier, 23 years from the patent application when it was filed until the first commercial copiers were being shipped. 23 years. The Internet, 20 years. Started in the 1970s, really got wide adoption in the 1990s. At the initial idea, what is typically missing is the ability to communicate the innovation utility to the customers. Think back on the fax machine, even the microwaves, even gasoline engine. It wasn't about the gasoline engine. It was really around Ford being able to take that gasoline engine, put it into an automobile, and communicate the innovation utility that then drove wide market adoption. Think about barcodes, or think about the copier. Think about even the Internet. When the Internet first came around, did anybody think about what the utility is today, where people today can't even think about not having broadband access to the net from their homes or from their offices, to the point now where we clearly understand what that utility value is. But the challenge for innovators is in the very, very early days of an idea is how do you quantify, how do you communicate the utility value around an innovation? How do you communicate that innovation utility to customers such that they understand it and that you can drive the adoption of your idea into the broader marketplace? So let's answer that question. How do you communicate the benefit of your idea, of your innovation to your customers? I use 5 components or 5 modules when I'm thinking about the message that I'm going to deliver around any idea or any innovation. The first is relative advantage. What is the advantage of your idea over what's currently in the market? Be honest, be truthful, be complete. Truly understand what the advantage of your idea or your innovation is over what's currently in the marketplace. Next, compatibility. Is your innovation so radically different that it requires a complete change out of the ecosystem in order to make it viable? This is where a lot of green technologies have started to run into some problems as far as compatibility. Hydrogen cars, you have to build out an entire new infrastructure to deliver hydrogen in order to make those hydrogen cars viable. How do you refuel them? Other technologies that exist today have that infrastructure in place, have that ecosystem. How compatible is what you're working on to what already exists? And be honest, is there a cost or is there going to be a huge change out before your idea or your innovation can be truly adopted? Next is complexity. How complex is your innovation and your idea? Is this something that you can easily explain, easily describe to your customer, and they get it? If your idea is too complex, the user will simply check out, the customer will ignore what it is you're saying, and will never understand the benefit because it's being presented in a too complex way. Can you make the idea simple? Can you make it meaningful in their day-to-day life, in their day-to-day job, in their day-to-day tasks? Next is trialability. Can the user try the idea, try the innovation before fully adopting? Is there a way for you to show what it is your benefit is without requiring a huge amount of investment and a huge amount of time? Can they try out your idea in 24 hours and truly understand the benefit it is that you're delivering? And then last but not least, observability. Can they observe the innovation benefit? Can they understand and can they see the direct benefits that they're going to get? Can they immediately, with the first interaction of your innovation, understand exactly what it's going to do for them, the time that's going to return back to them, what it is that they're working on, and how they're going to be able to benefit from what it is you're going to be delivering to them? Can they observe the benefit? So, in summary, don't get blinded with your love of your idea, of your innovation. We all tend to get very enamored with what it is we're working on, and we tend to forget about the fact that there are users who have to incur a cost to adopt what it is we're creating. Understand the utility benefit of your idea. There are both economic and non-economic costs. Understand that utility benefit and be able to communicate it. And then when you do communicate it, build your message to help your customers understand so they can understand what it is you're delivering to them and what that ultimate benefit is to them from the standpoint of their day-to-day lives. And last but not least, be realistic. You may think you've come up with this absolute best mousetrap and that you're literally going to become a millionaire in 24 hours. Not realistic. Be realistic about the time, energy, effort it takes in order to get innovation adoption traction, to get that marketplace to really adopt what it is you're working on. And I gave you the example on the rules of 20, the 20-year rule, which is kind of this average that it takes to go from a really radical idea to where it becomes market success. Not all innovations take 20 years. Some will happen much, much faster. The key there is I'm trying to set realistic expectations with you as you work on your ideas, as you work on your innovations, that the likelihood of overnight success is relatively small. It takes a lot of work, it takes a lot of energy, and remember, it's not a matter of how much you push the innovation. If you communicate the utility benefit to customers, you'll generate the market pull, and the more market pull you can get, the more likelihood of success you will achieve. Thanks for listening to this week's podcast. Please send your feedback by email to podcast@killerinnovations.com, or you can post your comments directly on the show notes at killerinnovations.com. While you're on the site, visit the community tab. It's recently been updated. It has links now to the Facebook and LinkedIn groups where listeners of the podcast come together. You can post questions, comments, ask for help or ideas. Also, you can follow now on Twitter. There's links over on the community tab at the killerinnovations.com website, and you can now follow on Twitter. If you are a regular listener to this podcast, you know that the motivation for me to do the podcast is a way of paying it forward for the early mentoring that I received early in my career. All I ask, and the only compensation I ask for, is that you pay it forward. Post a link to the podcast on your website, on your blog, mention it to your friends, direct others to the site that you think would benefit from the content that's produced. Thanks again for taking the time out of your busy schedule to listen to the podcast. Please send me feedback, send me questions, comments, links, or forward me articles that you find around innovation that you might think the other listeners would enjoy, and I'll post those up on the site also. Thanks again. We'll talk to you real soon. Bye-bye.